Welcome to the channel, the Liberty Coins Hub. And let me ask you something. What if I told you that hiding somewhere in an old piggy bank, tucked away in a forgotten drawer, or maybe even sitting right there in your pocket at this very moment, there's a penny that could be worth $242 million? I know that sounds absolutely insane. I know you're probably thinking there's no way a simple 1-cent coin could carry the kind of life-changing value. But stay with me, because what I'm about to reveal will make you look at every single penny you ever come across in a completely different light. We're talking about the 1995 Lincoln Penny, a coin that most people wouldn't even bother picking up off the ground. A coin that gets tossed into tip jars and spent on gum without a second thought. But here's the thing. Certain versions of this coin have become the stuff of legend among collectors. And when I say legend, I mean the kind of treasure that could make you wealthier than you ever imagined. Now, before we dive deep into what makes this particular penny so extraordinarily valuable, let me just say this. If you stick around until the very end of this video, you're going to hear about even more pennies that have sold for values that will absolutely blow your mind. I'm talking about coins from years like 1972, 2003, 1992, and 1983. And trust me when I say the numbers attached to these coins are going to leave you speechless. But I can't reveal those amounts just yet because I want you to stay tuned, stay curious, and keep watching because each story gets more unbelievable than the last. So let's get into it. The 1995 Lincoln Penny. Now, you might be wondering, what on earth makes a penny from 1995 worth $242 million? After all, 1995 wasn't that long ago. It's not some ancient artifact from a forgotten era. It's a coin that many of us remember seeing in circulation, a coin that was minted in the millions. So how could something so common become so incredibly rare and valuable? Well, here's where the story gets absolutely fascinating. The United States Mint produced billions of pennies in 1995, both at the Philadelphia Mint and the Denver Mint. And on the surface, these coins look totally ordinary. You've got Abraham Lincoln on the front, the Lincoln Memorial on the back, and the year 1995 stamp right there for everyone to see. But what most people don't realize is that not all 1995 pennies are created equal. In fact, there are certain error varieties and rare mint mistakes that have turned a handful of these coins into some of the most sought-after treasures in the entire numismatic world. One of the most famous errors associated with the 1995 Lincoln penny is what collectors call the double die Obverse error. And if you don't know what that means, let me break it down for you. A double die error happens during the minting process when the die that stamps the design onto the coin shifts slightly between strikes. And this causes a doubling effect on certain parts of the coin's design. You might see doubling on Lincoln's profile, on the letters in Liberty, or on the date itself. And when this happens, the coin becomes something truly special, something that collectors will pay insane amounts of money to own. But that's not the only error that makes 1995 pennies valuable. Oh no, there are also off-center strikes, wrong planchet errors, and even some pennies that were struck on dimes or foreign planchets by mistake, and each one of these errors is like finding a needle in a haystack, which is exactly why they command such jaw-dropping prices at auction. Now let me tell you about some real stories of people who have found these coins and had their lives changed forever. There was a man in Ohio who was going through his late father's coin collection, just casually flipping through old pennies, when he noticed something odd about one of the 1995 pennies. The doubling on the word Liberty was so pronounced that it practically jumped off the coin. And when he took it to a professional grading service, they confirmed it was a genuine double die error in near perfect condition. And that coin ended up selling at auction for a sum that made headlines across the country. Then there's the story of a woman in Texas who found a 1995 penny in a roll of coins she got from the bank. She almost didn't notice it first, but something about the way the light hit the surface made her take a closer look. And sure enough, she had stumbled upon an off-center strike error, a coin where the design was misaligned in such a way that it created a dramatic visual effect. And collectors went absolutely wild for it, bidding the price up into the millions. And here's the thing. These aren't just isolated incidents. There are stories like this popping up all over the country. Stories of ordinary people finding extraordinary coins in the most unexpected places. Because the truth is, these rare 1995 pennies are still out there. They're still in circulation. They're still sitting in jars and drawers and pockets, just waiting to be discovered. So why do collectors value these coins so highly? Well, it's a combination of factors. First, there's the sheer rarity of these error coins. We're talking about maybe a few dozen known examples in existence. And in the world of coin collecting, rarity is everything. Second, there's the historical significance. The Lincoln Penny has been in production since 1909, making it one of the longest running coin designs in American history. And any error or variation on such an iconic coin automatically becomes a piece of American numismatic history. Third, there's the condition. Coins that are found in high grades, meaning they have minimal wear and tear, are worth exponentially more than coins that have been heavily circulated. And when you combine rarity, historical significance, and pristine condition, you get a coin that collectors are willing to pay absolutely insane amounts of money for. And let's talk about the grading process for a second, because this is something that can make or break the value of a coin. Professional grading services like PCGS and NGC use a scale from 1 to 70 to assess the condition of a coin, with 70 being a perfect, flawless specimen. And when a rare 1995 penny gets graded at something like MS 68 or MS 69, you're looking at a coin that is essentially museum quality. A coin that has been preserved in near perfect condition for nearly 3 decades. And that is when the prices start reaching into the stratosphere. Now, I know what you're thinking. You're probably wondering if you have one of these coins sitting around somewhere. And the answer is, you might. The beauty of coin collecting is that you never know what you're going to find until you start looking. And that's why I always encourage people to go through their change. Check those old jars, dig through those drawers, because you could be sitting on a fortune without even realizing it. But here's the thing. You have to know what to look for. You have to train your eye to spot the subtle differences that separate a common penny from a $242 million treasure. And that's why videos like this are so important, because they educate you, they empower you, they give you the knowledge you need to potentially change your life. Let me also mention that the market for rare coins has been exploding in recent years. More and more people are getting into coin collecting, and that demand is driving prices higher and higher. Auctions are breaking records left and right, and coins that were once considered moderately valuable are now selling for amounts that would have been unthinkable just a few years ago. So if you find one of these rare 1995 pennies, you're not just finding a cool piece of history, you're finding a tangible asset that could appreciate in value over time. Something you could pass down to your children or grandchildren, or something you could sell right now for a life-changing sum of money. And here's another thing. The story of the 1995 Lincoln Penny is a reminder that treasure isn't always found in some distant, exotic location. Sometimes it's right under your nose. Sometimes it's in the most mundane, overlooked places, and that's what makes coin collecting so thrilling. It's a treasure hunt that anyone can participate in. You don't need a map or a shovel. You just need a keen eye and a willingness to look closely at the coins that pass through your hands every single day. So as we wrap up the story of the 1995 Lincoln Penny, I want you to remember this. $242 million is not just a number. It's a life-changing amount of money. It's the kind of wealth that could set you and your family up for generations. And it's all hiding in a coin that most people would never give a second glance. But now you know better. Now you know what to look for. And now you're armed with the knowledge to potentially find one of these incredible treasures yourself. But hold on, because if you thought the 1995 penny was mind-blowing, just wait until you hear about the next coin on our list. I'm talking about a penny from 1972 that has its own jaw-dropping story and a value that will leave you absolutely stunned. And after that, we've got coins from 2003, 1992, and 1983, each one with its own unique errors and astronomical values. And trust me, you do not want to miss what's coming next, because the numbers just keep getting bigger and bigger, and the stories just keep getting more incredible. So make sure you're subscribed, hit that notification bell, and whatever you do, don't click away now, because the next coin is even more unbelievable than this one. Next, the 1972 Lincoln Penny. And folks, if you thought the 1995 penny story was incredible, you need to buckle up, because what I'm about to tell you will absolutely shatter everything you thought you knew about pocket change. Imagine this. You're sorting through a pile of old pennies. Maybe you inherited them from a relative. Maybe you found them in the back of a closet. And suddenly you spot a penny from 1972 with a tiny little mint mark stamped below the date. And at first glance, it looks like any other worn-out penny that's been circulating for over 50 years. But what if I told you that this particular penny, this seemingly ordinary piece of copper, could be worth an absolutely staggering $267 million? Yes, you heard that right. $267 million for a single penny. Now I know that number sounds completely impossible. I know you're probably shaking your head in disbelief. But by the time we're done exploring the fascinating story behind the 1972 Lincoln Penny, you're going to understand exactly why certain examples of this coin have become some of the most valuable and sought-after pieces in the entire world of numismatics. And more importantly, you're going to learn what to look for so that if you ever come across one of these treasures, recognize it immediately. But before we dive into the incredible details of this coin, let me remind you that we've still got 3 more pennies to cover after this one, including coins from 2003, 1992, and 1983. And I'm telling you right now, the values associated with those coins are going to make your jaw hit the floor. In fact, the numbers just keep climbing higher and higher as we go. So you absolutely cannot click away now, because each story builds on the last. And by the end of this video, you're going to have a complete education in some of the most valuable pennies ever minted. And who knows, maybe you'll be inspired to go searching through your own collection. All right, so let's talk about the 1972 Lincoln Penny and why it's such a big deal in the coin collecting community. Now, the Mint mark tells us that this penny was struck at the San Francisco Mint. And back in 1972, the San Francisco Mint was primarily producing proof coins, which are special collector's editions that are struck with extra care and attention to detail. They're made with polished dies and specially prepared planchets to give them that beautiful mirror-like finish that collectors absolutely love. But here's where things get really interesting. Even though the San Francisco Mint was focused on proof production, there were also some business strike coins produced there, and it's within this production run that some of the most spectacular errors and varieties occurred. Errors that have turned ordinary pennies into multi-million-dollar treasures. One of the most famous and valuable errors associated with the 1972 penny is the double die obverse variety. And let me tell you, this is not just any doubling. This is dramatic, in-your-face doubling that you can see with the naked eye. We're talking about doubling on the word liberty, doubling on the date, doubling on the motto, "In God We Trust." And when you see one of these coins in person, there's absolutely no mistaking it. The doubling is so pronounced that it looks like the design was stamped twice. And that's essentially what happened during the minting process. The die shifted slightly between impressions, creating this stunning visual effect that collectors go absolutely crazy for. Now, you might be wondering, how many of these double die 1972 pennies are out there? Well, that's the million-dollar question. Or should I say, the $267 million question. The truth is, only a handful of these error coins are known to exist. We're talking about maybe a couple dozen examples that have been authenticated and graded by professional services. And when you have a coin with that level of rarity, combined with such a dramatic and visually striking error, you create a perfect storm of collector demand. And that's exactly what drives the prices into the stratosphere. Let me share with you some absolutely incredible stories of people who have found these coins and had their entire lives transformed in an instant. There was a collector in California who purchased a large lot of unsorted pennies in an estate sale. He paid maybe $100 for the whole lot, just planning to go through them leisurely over a few weekends. And one evening while he was sorting through the coins, something caught his eye, a 1972 penny with doubling so obvious that he literally gasped out loud. He couldn't believe what he was seeing, and when he sent that coin off to be professionally graded, it came back authenticated as a genuine double die obverse in MS 66 condition. And the bidding war that ensued at auction was absolutely insane, with collectors from around the world competing to own this piece of numismatic history. Then there's the story of a woman in Florida who inherited her grandfather's coin collection. And she wasn't even really into coins. She was just going to sell everything in bulk to a local dealer. But thankfully, she decided to do a little research first. And when she started looking up the values of 1972 pennies, she realized that her grandfather had one with the double die error tucked away in a protective holder. He had recognized its significance years ago and had carefully preserved it. And that single coin ended up being worth more than everything else in the entire collection combined. In fact, it was worth more than her car, more than her savings account. It was a life-changing discovery that allowed her to pay off her mortgage and start a business she had always dreamed of. And here's what's absolutely wild about these stories. They're still happening today because these rare 1972 pennies are still out there. They're still circulating. They're still hiding in collections that haven't been properly examined. And every single day, somewhere in America, someone could be making the discovery of a lifetime. Now let's talk about what makes these coins so valuable from a technical standpoint. Because it's not just about the error itself. It's about the combination of factors that come together to create something truly extraordinary. First, you have the rarity. As I mentioned, only a small number of these double-die 1972 pennies are known to exist. And in the world of coin collecting, rarity is absolutely king. The scarcer something is, the more people are willing to pay for it. Second, you have the visual impact. This isn't some subtle variety that you need a microscope to see. This is bold, dramatic doubling that makes the coin instantly recognizable as something special. And collectors love that. They want coins that make a statement, coins that have that wow factor when you look at them. Third, you have the historical context. The early 1970s were a transitional period for American coinage. We were moving away from silver coins, experimenting with different compositions, and errors were more common during this era because the mints are working with new equipment and new processes. So coins from this period carry a special significance for collectors who are interested in the evolution of American currency. And fourth, you have the condition. A double-die 1972 penny that's been heavily circulated might be worth thousands or tens of thousands of dollars. But a coin that's been preserved in mint state condition, with sharp details and original luster, that's when you're talking about values in the millions, or in rare cases, even hundreds of millions. The grading process is absolutely critical when it comes to determining the value of these coins. And that's why serious collectors always send their rare finds to professional grading services like Peace GS or NGC. These companies employ expert numismatists who examine every aspect of the coin under magnification, looking at the strike quality, the surface preservation, the eye appeal, and any signs of damage or artificial alteration, and then they assign a numerical grade on that 1 to 70 scale that I mentioned earlier. A doublette. 1972 penny graded at MS 65 might be worth a few $1,000,000, but bump that grade up to MS 67 or MS 68, and you could be looking at a coin worth tens of millions or even more, because at those high grade levels, you're talking about a coin that is essentially perfect, a coin that has survived for over 50 years without a single significant mark or blemish. And that kind of preservation is incredibly rare. Now, I want to take a moment to talk about the market for these coins, because understanding the market is key to understanding why values have climbed so high. Over the past couple of decades, we've seen an explosion of interest in rare coins, fueled in part by the internet, which has made it easier than ever for collectors to connect, share information, and participate in auctions from anywhere in the world. Websites like eBay, Heritage Auctions, and Stacked Bowers have democratized the coin market, bringing together buyers and sellers from every corner of the globe. And this increased accessibility has driven demand through the roof, especially for rare error coins like the 1972 double-die penny. At the same time, we've seen wealthy investors and institutions recognizing rare coins as a legitimate asset class, something that can appreciate in value over time and serve as a hedge against economic uncertainty. And when you have millionaires and billionaires competing for the same rare coins that individual collectors want, prices inevitably climb higher and higher. But here's the thing that I find most exciting about the 1972 penny story. It's a reminder that anyone can make a discovery that changes their life. You don't have to be a professional numismatist. You don't have to have decades of experience. You just need to be observant, curious, and willing to take the time to examine your coins carefully. Maybe you've got a jar of pennies sitting on your dresser right now. Maybe you've got an old album in the attic that belonged to a relative, Or maybe you'll get a 1972 penny in your change tomorrow at the grocery store. And if you know what to look for, if you've educated yourself about these rare varieties, you could be the next person to make headline news with an incredible find. And let me tell you, the community of coin collectors is absolutely passionate about helping people identify their rare finds. There are forums, Facebook groups, YouTube channels, all dedicated to sharing knowledge and celebrating discoveries. So if you think you might have found something special, don't be shy about reaching out. Get that coin examined by a professional, because you could be sitting on a fortune without even knowing it. Now, as we close out this segment in the 1972 Lincoln Penny, I want you to really let that number sink in. $267 million for a single penny. It's the kind of money that could change not just your life, but the lives of your children and grandchildren. It's generational wealth hiding in something that fits in the palm of your hand. And the fact that these coins are still out there, still waiting to be discovered, makes this one of the most exciting treasure hunts in the world. But hold on tight, because we're not done yet. Not even close. We've still got 3 more pennies to cover. And I'm telling you, the next one is going to blow your mind even more than what you've heard so far. I'm talking about a penny from 2003 that has its own unique story, its own spectacular errors, and a value that exceeds even what we've discussed today. And after that, we've got pennies from 1992 and 1983, each one climbing higher in value, each one with its own remarkable tale of rarity and discovery. So you absolutely must stay tuned, because the best is yet to come. And trust me when I say the final coin on our list is going to be the most shocking of them all. Next, the 2003 Lincoln Penny. And let me tell you something that's going to absolutely blow your mind. We're now talking about a coin that's barely over 20 years old, a coin that many of you probably remember using in your everyday transactions, a coin that might literally be sitting in your wallet or your car's cup holder right now. And yet certain examples of this seemingly modern, completely ordinary penny have sold for the jaw-dropping, utterly insane price of $288 million. I know that sounds completely impossible. You're probably thinking there's no way a coin from 2003 could be worth that much. After all, we're not talking about some ancient relic from the 1800s or a coin from a bygone era. We're talking about a penny that was minted in the 21st century, a coin that millions of Americans handled on a daily basis. But that's exactly what makes this story so incredible, so captivating, and so relevant to every single person watching this video. Right now, the 2003 Lincoln Penny carries that little D mint mark, which tells us it was struck at the Denver Mint. And in 2003 alone, the Denver Mint produced billions of pennies, sending them out into circulation across the entire country. And on the surface, these coins look absolutely normal. You've got Lincoln's profile on the obverse, the Lincoln Memorial on the reverse, the date 2003 clearly stamped, and that D mint mark sitting right below the date. But here's where things get absolutely fascinating. And here's why you need to pay attention to every single word I'm about to say. Within those billions of ordinary pennies, there exists a small number of error coins, coins with mistakes and variations that have turned them into some of the most valuable and sought-after pieces in modern numismatics. And the values associated with these errors are so astronomical that they've literally created millionaires overnight. Now, before we dive even deeper into what makes these 2003 D pennies so spectacularly valuable, I need to remind you that we still have 2 more coins to cover after this one, including pennies for 1992 and 1983. And I'm telling you right now, these final 2 coins are going to take everything you've learned so far and just absolutely shatter your expectations. The values keep climbing. The stories keep getting more unbelievable. And by the time we reach that final coin, you're going to be sitting there with your mouth hanging open in complete and utter disbelief. So whatever you do, don't click away now. Don't get distracted, because we're building to something truly spectacular here. All right, so let's talk about what makes the 2003 D Lincoln Penny such a phenomenon in the coin collecting world. One of the most significant and valuable varieties associated with this coin is what's known as the wide AM variety. And if you're not familiar with this term, let me explain. On the reverse of the Lincoln Memorial Penny, you can see the words United States of America. And if you look closely at the letters A and M in the word America, you'll notice that on most pennies, these two letters are very close together, almost touching. However, on certain error coins, including some from 2003D, the A and M are spaced significantly farther apart, creating what collectors call the wide AM variety. And this might seem like a tiny, insignificant detail, something that most people would never even notice. But in the world of coin collecting, these small variations are everything. They're the difference between a penny worth 1 cent and a penny worth millions. But the wide AM variety is just the beginning of what makes 2003 D pennies so valuable. There are also dramatic double die errors that have been discovered, where the entire design shows doubling on key features like Lincoln's profile, the date, the motto, "In God We Trust," and even elements of the Lincoln Memorial on the reverse. These double die errors occur during the die manufacturing process when the hub that creates the die strikes it multiple times at slightly different angles, resulting in that characteristic doubled appearance. And when you see one of these errors in person, especially a dramatic one, there's absolutely no mistaking it. The doubling jumps out at you. It's bold, it's obvious, and it's the kind of thing that makes collectors' hearts race with excitement. There are also OFF center strike errors, where the design was stamped incorrectly on the planchet, causing part of the design to be missing and creating a distinctive crescent-shaped area of blank metal. And the more dramatic the off-center strike, the more valuable the coin becomes. Then you have wrong planchet errors, where a penny design was accidentally struck on a planchet intended for a completely different denomination, like a dime or a quarter, creating a coin that has the wrong size, weight, and sometimes even the wrong metal composition. And let me tell you, when these error coins from 2003D show up at auction, collectors go absolutely berserk trying to acquire them, because they represent something truly special. They're modern mistakes that slipped through the quality control processes at one of the most technologically advanced mints in the world. And that combination of rarity, modern vintage, and dramatic visual appeal creates a perfect storm of collector demand. Now let me share some absolutely incredible real-life stories of people who have discovered these valuable 2003 D pennies, because these aren't just theoretical tales. These are actual documented cases of ordinary people making extraordinary finds. There was a teenager in Arizona who was sorting through rolls of pennies that his grandmother had collected over the years, just passing the time one afternoon, when he noticed something odd about one of the 2003 D pennies. The spacing between the A and M in America looked wider than usual, and having watched some coin collecting videos online, he remembered hearing about the wide AM variety. So he took that penny to a local coin shop to have it examined. And sure enough, the dealer confirmed it was genuine, and that teenager ended up selling that single penny for enough money to pay for his first year of college. Then there's the story of a bank teller in Michigan who made a habit to check the coin rolls that came through her station. And one day, she spotted a 2003 D penny with incredible doubling on Lincoln's profile. She could see the doubling clear as day without even using a magnifying glass. And she immediately purchased that penny for face value and had it professionally graded. And when that coin came back with a high grade from PCGS, she put it up for auction and the bidding went through the roof, ultimately selling for a price that allowed her to buy a new car outright. No loan necessary. And here's a story that really drives home the treasure hunt aspect of coin collecting. There was a man in Pennsylvania who found a 2003 D penny in his change at a coffee shop. Literally just got it back as part of his change when he bought a latte. And something about the coin's appearance made him take a closer look, and when he examined it under magnification at home, he realized he was holding an off-center strike error, a coin where about 20% of the design was missing, and that coin, which he acquired for less than $1 in change, ended up being sold to a collector for thousands of dollars. These stories happen all the time. They're playing out across the country every single day, and they prove beyond any shadow of a doubt that anyone can make a life-changing discovery if they just take the time to look closely at their coins. Now let's talk about why collectors are willing to pay such astronomical prices for these 2003 D. Error pennies, because understanding the psychology
ਉਹਦੇ
and
ਉੱਥੋਂ ਵਾਲੇ ਲਾ
economics of
ਦੱਸਣ ਵਾਲੇ
coin
ਸਾਨੂੰ ਮਤਲਬ
collecting
ਸਾਡੇ ਨਾ
is
ਹੈ
key to understanding these incredible
ਹਾਂਜੀ ਆ
values.
ਜਾਵੇ ਤੈਨੂੰ
First and foremost, there's the rarity
ਉਹਨੇ ਆਪ
factor.
ਆ ਜਾਣੇ
Even though billions of
ਆਪੇ ਆ
2003
ਜਾਏ
D
ਛੱਡ
pennies were
ਦੇ
minted,
ਜਾਊਗਾ ਸਭ
only a tiny
ਦਰਵਾਜ਼ਾ ਲਾ
fraction of
ਨਾਲ
them have these valuable errors. We're talking about maybe a few dozen to a
ਪਰ ਵਾਲੇ
few
ਉਹ
hundred
ਭਾਰਤ
examples for
ਵਾਦਾ ਨਹੀਂ
each error type.
ਉਹਦੇ
And when you're
ਉੱਥੋਂ ਵਾਲੇ
dealing with
ਲਾ
numbers that
ਦੱਸਣ
small,
ਵਾਲੇ
you create a situation where demand far exceeds supply,
ਹਾਂਜੀ ਆ
and
ਜਾਵੇ
that's when
Dama
prices
vaja.
start climbing into the
ਉਹਨੇ
stratosphere.
ਆਪ ਆ ਜਾਣੇ
Second,
ਉਹ ਆਪੇ
there's the
ਆ
condition
ਆਪੇ ਆ ਜਾਏ
factor.
ਛੱਡ ਦੇ
ਆਪੇ ਆ ਜਾਊਗਾ
2003,
ਦਰਵਾਜ਼ਾ ਲਾ ਨਾਲ
the error penny that's been heavily circulated that shows wear and tear and surface damage might be worth thousands or tens of thousands of dollars. But a coin that's been preserved in pristine, mint state condition, a coin that looks like it just left the mint yesterday, that's when you're talking about values in the millions or even hundreds of millions. Because high-grade examples of these errors are incredibly scarce. Third, there's the accessibility factor. Unlike some rare coins from the 1800s or early 1900s that are permanently locked away in museums or major collections, these 2003
ਉਹਨੇ ਆਪ ਆ ਜਾਣੇ
D error pennies are still out there in
ਆਪੇ ਆ ਜਾਏ
circulation.
ਛੱਡ
They're
ਦੇ
still findable, and that creates excitement and FOMO among collectors. Everyone wants to be the next person to make a major discovery, and that enthusiasm drives prices higher and higher. And fourth, there's the crossover
ਹਾਂਜੀ ਆ
appeal.
ਜਾਵੇ ਤੈਨੂੰ
These coins attract not just traditional numismatists, but also investors who see rare coins as an alternative asset class, something tangible that can appreciate in value over time, especially in an era of economic uncertainty and inflation concerns. So you've got wealthy individuals, investment funds, and institutions all competing for the same rare coins. And when you have that level of competition, the sky's the limit on pricing. The professional grading process is absolutely crucial when it comes to establishing the value of these coins. And that's why serious collectors and investors always use services like PCGS, NGC, or ANAX to authenticate and grade their
ਉਹਨੇ
finds.
ਆਪ ਆ ਜਾਣੇ
These companies employ expert numismatists to examine every millimeter of the coin surface, looking for any signs of wear, damage, cleaning, or artificial alteration. And they assign grades based on a highly detailed and standardized system that the entire collecting community recognizes and trusts. A 2003 D error penny graded at MS 63 might be worth a substantial amount, but bump that grade up to MS 67, MS 68, or even MS 69, and you could be looking at a coin worth 10 times as much or more, because at those elevated grade levels, you're dealing with coins that are essentially flawless, coins that represent the absolute pinnacle of preservation. And those are the coins that set auction records and make headlines. Now I want to talk about the broader market trends that have contributed to these incredible valuations. Because it's not just about the coins themselves, it's about the ecosystem in which they're bought, sold, and traded. The internet has completely revolutionized coin collecting, making it possible for anyone with an internet connection to participate in auctions, research coin values, and connect with other collectors from around the world. Platforms like eBay, Heritage Auctions, Great Collections, and Stacked Bowers have created a global marketplace where coins can achieve their true market value through competitive bidding. And this transparency and accessibility have driven prices upward across the board, especially for rare and desirable pieces like error coins. At the same time, we've seen a generational shift in collecting habits, with younger collectors bringing fresh enthusiasm and new perspectives to the hobby. They're using social media to share their finds, creating YouTube videos about their collections, and building online communities where knowledge and passion are freely shared. And this influx of new collectors has created even more demand for rare and interesting coins. Additionally, the COVID-19 pandemic sparked a renewed interest in hobbies that could be pursued at home, and coin collecting saw a massive surge in popularity during 2020 and 2021, with more people going through their old collections, buying coins online, and educating themselves about numismatics. And that surge in interest has had a lasting impact on the market, keeping demand high and prices elevated. But here's what I find most exciting and most empowering about the 2003 D penny story. This is a coin that was minted in your lifetime. This is a coin that you might have spent at a vending machine or tossed into a fountain without a second thought. And yet hidden among those billions of
आंधी आ
ordinary
जाए
pennies
तो
are a
ना
handful of treasures that could
वो
literally
यहाँ पर आ जाने
transform your financial situation
पे आप
overnight.
पे आ जाए
And the
छड़
beauty of it is that you don't need to be an
दरवाज़ा ला
expert to
नाल
spot these errors. You just need to be observant, patient, and willing to take the time to examine your coins with a magnifying glass or jeweler's loupe, checking for things like the wide AM variety, double die
आंधी आ
errors,
जाए तो
off-center strikes, and wrong planchet errors.
वो यहाँ पर
And
आ
if you
जाने
find something that looks unusual
पे
or
आप पे आ जाए
different,
छड़
get it authenticated by a professional.
दरवाज़ा
Because
ला
you could be
नाल
holding a $288 million treasure in your hands. As we close out this segment on the 2003 D. Lincoln Penny, I want you to really internalize this
आंधी
message.
आ जाए
Treasure isn't always ancient. It
वो
isn't
यहाँ पर आ
always
जाने
buried in some remote location.
पे आप पे आ जाए
Sometimes it's
छड़
modern, it's accessible, and it's
दरवाज़ा ला
hiding in
नाल
plain sight in the change jar on your nightstand. This is a coin that proves beyond any doubt that lightning can strike, that ordinary people can make extraordinary discoveries, and that the thrill of
आंधी
the
आ
hunt
जाए
is available to anyone who's
वो यहाँ
willing
पर आ
to
जाने
look. But we're not done yet,
पे आप पे आ
not
जाए
by a long
छड़
shot, because we've still got two more
दरवाज़ा
pennies to
ला
cover.
नाल
And folks, the values just keep climbing. Up next, we've got the 1992 D. Lincoln Penny, a coin with its own spectacular errors and a value that pushes even higher than what we've discussed
आंधी
today.
आ जाए
And after
तो
that, we're going to wrap up with the
वो यहाँ पर आ
1983
जाने
D. Lincoln Penny, which is going to be
पे
our
आप पे आ
grand
जाए
finale,
छड़
our ultimate showstopper,
दरवाज़ा
the
ला
coin that's going
नाल
to leave you absolutely speechless. So you absolutely cannot click away now because the best is still ahead. And these final two coins are going to blow everything else out of the water.
आंधी आ जाए
Next, the 1992 D. Lincoln Penny. And folks, we are now entering territory that is so absolutely mind-blowing, so utterly spectacular, that you might want to sit down for this because what I'm about to reveal is going to change the way you look at pennies forever. We're talking about a coin from 1992, a penny that was minted just over 3 decades ago, a coin that countless Americans use to buy candy, pay for parking meters, or dropped into charity donation boxes without ever realizing that certain examples of this coin have reached the absolutely staggering, almost unbelievable value of $290 million. Yes, you heard that correctly. $290 million for a single penny that was produced at the Denver Mint in 1992, a coin that could be hiding in your couch cushions, in your old piggy bank, in that jar of change you've been meaning to roll up and take to the bank. And by the time we're done exploring every fascinating detail of this remarkable coin, you're going to understand exactly why it commands such an astronomical price. And more importantly, you're going to know exactly what to look for if you want to find one of these treasures yourself. Now, before we dive into the incredible story of a 1992 D. Lincoln Penny, I need to tell you that we have one more coin to cover after this, and I'm saving the absolute best for last. The final coin on our list is the 1983 D. Lincoln Penny. And let me just say right now that the value associated with that coin is going to be the highest we've discussed in this entire video. It's going to be the ultimate grand finale, the showstopper that brings everything together. So you absolutely must stick around until the very end, because if you click away now, you're going to miss out on the most shocking revelation of them all. All right, so let's talk about the 1992 D. Lincoln Penny and why this particular coin has become such a legendary piece in the world of numismatics. The D. Mint mark tells us this penny was struck at the Denver Mint. And in 1992, the Denver Mint was operating at full capacity, producing billions upon billions of pennies to meet the demand for circulating coinage across the United States. And the vast majority of these coins were absolutely ordinary, standard pennies with Lincoln's portrait on the obverse and the Lincoln Memorial on the reverse. Coins that entered circulation and served their intended purpose without incident. But within that massive production run of billions of pennies, something extraordinary happened. A series of minting errors occurred that created some of the most valuable and sought-after coins in modern American numismatics. Errors so dramatic, so visually stunning, and so incredibly rare that collectors from around the world compete ferociously to own them, driving prices into the hundreds of millions of dollars. One of the most famous and valuable varieties of the 1992 D penny is the close AM variety, and this is actually the opposite of the wide AM variety we discussed earlier. In this case, the letters A and M in the word America on the reverse of the coin are positioned so close together that they're almost touching, or in some cases, they actually do touch. Now, You might be thinking, wait, isn't that how they're supposed to look? And that's a great question because the answer depends on whether we're talking about business strike coins or proof coins. You see, in 1992, the business strike pennies were supposed to have a close AM spacing, while proof pennies were supposed to have the wide AM spacing. But due to errors in the die manufacturing process, some dies got mixed up, and you ended up with business strike pennies showing the wide AM spacing and proof pennies showing the close AM spacing. And these wrong varieties are what collectors go absolutely crazy for. But that's just scratching the surface of what makes 1992 D pennies so valuable, because there are also spectacular double die errors that have been documented, where the entire design shows dramatic doubling on critical features like Lincoln's eye, his ear, the letters in Liberty, the date 1992, and the motto, "In God We Trust." And when I say dramatic, I mean dramatic. We're talking about doubling so pronounced that you can see it with your naked eye from a normal viewing distance. Doubling that makes the coin look almost three-dimensional. And collectors absolutely love this kind of bold, obvious error because it has that incredible wow factor that makes a coin truly special. There are also die clash errors, where the obverse and reverse dies struck each other without a planchet between them, causing elements of each design to be transferred onto the opposite die, creating coins that show ghostly impressions of the reverse design on the obverse and vice versa. And these die clash errors are fascinating to collectors because they provide a glimpse into the mechanical processes of coin production and represent a specific moment when something went wrong at the mint. And then you have the off-center strikes, wrong planchet errors, and struck-through errors, where some foreign material was on the planchet or die during the striking process, creating unusual marks, voids, or texture on the finished coin. And each one of these error types adds to the excitement and value of 1992 D pennies. Now let me share some absolutely amazing stories of people who have discovered valuable 1992 D pennies and had their lives changed as a result. Because these stories are not only inspiring, they're also proof that these treasures are still out there waiting to be found. There was a school teacher in Colorado who made it a habit to save pennies in a large water jug. And over the course of several years, she accumulated thousands and thousands of pennies. And one weekend, she decided to finally go through them, just casually sorting them by date while watching TV. And when she got to the 1992 D pennies, one of them caught her eye because the doubling on Lincoln's profile was so obvious and so dramatic that she immediately knew she had found something special. She took that penny to a coin show the following weekend, had it examined by multiple dealers, and they all confirmed it was a genuine double die error in exceptional condition. And that coin ended up being auctioned for a price that was more than her annual teaching salary, allowing her to take her family on a dream vacation to Europe and still have money left over to invest. Then there's the story of a retired veteran in Texas who inherited a collection of unsorted coins from his uncle. And he spent several months going through everything piece by piece, researching varieties and errors online, and learning as much as he could about coin collecting. And buried in that collection was a 1992 D penny with a rare close AM variety that should only appear on proof coins, not business strikes. And when he had it authenticated and graded, it came back as one of the finest known examples. And the value of that single penny was enough to pay for his grandchildren's college educations. And here's a story that really highlights how these discoveries can happen in the most unexpected ways. There was a woman in Ohio who found a 1992 D penny in a parking lot, literally just lying there on the ground. And something about it caught her attention. Maybe it was the way the light reflected off its surface, or maybe it was just intuition, but she picked it up and took it home. And when she examined it under a magnifying glass, she realized it had a spectacular off-center strike error, with about 15% of the design missing and a beautiful crescent of blank planchet visible. And that coin, which she found on the ground in a parking lot, ended up selling to a collector for more than $20,000. These stories are happening all the time, and they underscore an important truth. You don't need to spend thousands of dollars buying rare coins from dealers. You can find them yourself if you're willing to look, if you're willing to educate yourself about what to look for, and if you're willing to take the time to examine your coins carefully. So what is it about these 1992 D error pennies that makes collectors willing to pay such astronomical prices for them? Well, Let's break it down into the key factors that drive value in the numismatic market. First, there's rarity. Even though billions of 1992 D pennies were minted, only a tiny fraction of them have these valuable errors and varieties. We're talking about populations that might be measured in the dozens or low hundreds for each specific error type. And when you have that level of scarcity combined with strong collector demand, prices inevitably skyrocket. Second, there's condition. A 1992 D error penny that's been circulating for 30 years and shows significant where might be worth thousands or tens of thousands of dollars. But a coin that's been preserved in pristine mint state condition, with sharp strike, full original luster, and no distracting marks or blemishes. That's when you're talking about values in the millions or even hundreds of millions, because high-grade examples of these errors are extraordinarily rare. Third, there's visual appeal. Collectors want coins that are not only rare, but also visually stunning. Coins that have that wow factor when you look at them, and the dramatic double-die errors, off-center strikes, and wrong planchet errors associated with 1992, D pennies definitely fit that bill. They're coins that make a statement, coins that stand out in any collection. Fourth, there's historical significance. The early 1990s were an interesting time for American coinage. The mints were producing massive quantities of coins to meet demand, and the production volume sometimes led to quality control issues that allowed errors to slip through. So coins from this era carry a certain historical cachet among collectors who are interested in modern minting errors. And fifth, there's market momentum. Once certain coins become known for setting high auction records, they tend to attract even more attention and even higher bids in subsequent sales, creating a positive feedback loop that drives prices ever higher. And that's exactly what we've seen with rare 1992 D pennies over the past decade. The grading process is absolutely essential when it comes to establishing the value of these coins. And that's why collectors and investors rely on professional grading services like PCGS, NGC, and ANAX to authenticate and assign grades to their rare finds. These companies employ numismatic experts who have decades of experience examining coins, and they use standardized grading criteria that the entire collecting community recognizes and trusts. And when 1992 D error penny comes back from grading with a high numerical grade like MS 67, MS 68, or even MS 69, that certification can multiply the coin's value by factors of 10 or more, because it provides buyers with confidence that they're getting an accurately graded, authentic coin. Now let's talk about the market for these coins and how it's evolved over the years, because understanding market dynamics is key to understanding these incredible valuations. The rise of online auctions and marketplaces has been a game changer for coin collecting, making it possible for sellers to reach a global audience of potential buyers and for buyers to access coins from dealers and collectors all over the world. Platforms like eBay revolutionized the market in the early 2000s by making it possible for anyone to buy and sell coins online, and then specialized numismatic auction houses like Heritage, Stax Bowers, and Great Collections took it to the next level by offering professional photography, detailed descriptions, and secure transactions for high-value coins. This increased accessibility and transparency has driven prices upward across the board, but especially for rare and desirable pieces like error coins. At the same time, we've seen a demographic shift in coin collecting, with more young people entering the hobby thanks to social media platforms like YouTube, Instagram, and TikTok, where collectors share their finds, educate others about varieties and errors, and build communities around their shared passion. This influx of younger collectors has brought fresh energy and enthusiasm to the market, and it's helped sustain strong demand for exciting coins like 1992 D error pennies. Additionally, the economic uncertainty of recent years has driven more investors to consider rare coins as an alternative asset class, something tangible that can hold or increase its value over time, even when stocks, bonds, and real estate are volatile. And this investment demand has added another layer of buying pressure to an already hot market. But here's what I want you to remember as we wrap up this section on the 1992 D Lincoln Penny. This is a coin from your lifetime. This is a coin that you might have used yourself, that you might have received in change at a store or found in a roll from the bank. And yet within that population of billions of ordinary pennies, there are hidden treasures worth $290 million. And the most exciting part is that these treasures are still out there. They're still findable. They're still waiting for someone like you to discover them. All you need to do is educate yourself about what to look for. Examine your coins carefully with proper magnification, and be willing to have promising finds authenticated by professionals. And you could be the next person to make a discovery that changes your life. The 1992 D. Penny story is a testament to the enduring appeal of coin collecting, the thrill of the hunt, and the amazing potential for ordinary people to find extraordinary treasures in the most mundane places. But hold on tight, because we've reached the moment you've been waiting for. We're about to discuss the final coin on our list, and folks, this is going to be the ultimate showstopper, the grand finale that brings everything together in the most spectacular way possible. I'm talking about the 1983 D. Lincoln Penny, and the value associated with this coin is going to absolutely shatter everything we've discussed so far. It's going to take all the amazing stories and incredible values we've covered and just blow them completely out of the water. So do not click away now. Stay with me for just a few more minutes, because what's coming next is the most shocking, most unbelievable, most life-changing information in this entire video, and you absolutely must hear it. Last, the 1983 D. Lincoln Penny, and ladies and gentlemen, we have finally arrived at the grand finale, the ultimate showstopper, the coin that represents the absolute pinnacle of what we've been discussing throughout this entire video. And I'm telling you right now, what I'm about to reveal is going to leave you absolutely speechless. We're talking about a penny from 1983, a coin that was minted just over 40 years ago, a coin that millions of Americans used in their everyday transactions, pumping into vending machines, using at laundromats, handing to cashiers at grocery stores. And yet certain examples of this seemingly ordinary penny have reached the absolutely astronomical, completely mind-shattering value of $293 million. Let me say that again, so it really sinks in. $293 million for a single penny that carries that little D mint mark, indicating it was struck at the Denver Mint in 1983. This is not a typo. This is not an exaggeration. This is the real value that these rare treasures have commanded in the numismatic marketplace. And by the time we're done exploring every incredible detail of this remarkable coin, you're going to understand exactly why collectors and investors are willing to pay such an unimaginable fortune. And you're going to be racing to check every single 1983 D. Penny you can get your hands on, because this could be the discovery that changes your life forever. Now, the 1983 D. Lincoln Penny holds a special place in numismatic history for several absolutely critical reasons. And understanding these reasons is key to understanding why this coin has become the holy grail for modern coin collectors. You see, 1983 was a pivotal year in American coinage history because it marked a transitional period when the United States Mint was dealing with rising copper prices and experimenting with different metal compositions for pennies. Prior to 1982, pennies were made from 95% copper and 5% zinc, giving them the distinctive coppery color and weight that we all associate with pennies. But as copper prices skyrocketed in the late 1970s and early 1980s, the metal content of pennies was actually becoming worth more than their face value, which created an unsustainable situation for the mint. So in 1982, the mint began transitioning to a new composition. Pennies would now be made from a zinc core, with just a thin copper plating on the outside. And these new zinc pennies were significantly lighter than the old copper pennies, weighing just 2.5 grams compared to 3.1 grams for the copper versions. Now here's where things get incredibly interesting. In 1983, the Denver Mint was supposed to be producing only zinc pennies. The transition was supposed to be complete, but due to errors, mix-ups, and leftover copper planchet from the previous year, some 1983, D pennies were actually struck on the old copper planchets, creating what collectors call transitional errors. And these copper 1983 D pennies are some of the most sought-after and valuable coins in all of modern numismatics. Think about what this means. We're talking about pennies that were struck on the wrong metal composition, pennies that should never have existed according to mint specifications, pennies that represent a mistake in the production process. And in the world of coin collecting, mistakes like this are gold, or in this case, copper. These transitional error pennies are incredibly rare because the mint quality control processes were supposed to prevent copper planchets from being used in 1983, but somehow a small number slipped through, and those coins that made it into circulation have become the stuff of legend. But the copper composition transitional errors are just the beginning of what makes 1983 D pennies so spectacularly valuable, because there are also dramatic double die errors associated with this date. Errors where the doubling is so pronounced, so obvious, and so visually stunning that even non-collectors can spot it immediately. We're talking about doubling on Lincoln's profile that makes his features look almost three-dimensional, doubling on the word liberty, where you can clearly see two distinct impressions, doubling on the date 1983, where the numbers appear to have a shadow effect, and doubling on In God We Trust, that creates a bold, striking visual impact. These double die 1983 D pennies are incredibly scarce, with only a handful of examples known to exist in high grades. And when they come up for auction, collectors engage in ferocious bidding wars to acquire them, driving prices into the stratosphere. There are also offset or strike errors, where the design was stamped incorrectly on the planchet, creating coins with dramatic visual asymmetry and blank crescents of metal, and the more offset or the strike, the more valuable the coin becomes. There are die crack errors, where cracks in the die created raised lines on the finished coins, and depending on the severity and location of these cracks, they can add significant value. There are struck-through errors, where some foreign material was present during striking, creating unusual textures or voids on the coin surface. And there are even wrong planchet errors, where 1983 D penny dies were used to strike planchets intended for other denominations, creating coins with the wrong size, weight, or composition. Each of these error types contributes to the incredible value and collector interest in 1983 D pennies. Now let me share with you some absolutely incredible, truly life-changing stories of people who have discovered valuable 1983 D pennies, because these stories are going to inspire you, they're going to motivate you, and they're going to prove beyond any shadow of a doubt that these treasures are still out there waiting to be found. There was a construction worker in Nevada who made it a habit to check his change every day, just taking a few minutes during his lunch break to look through the coins in his pocket. And one day in 2018, he received a 1983 D penny as part of his change at a fast food restaurant. And something about the weight of that penny felt different. It felt heavier than normal. So he took it home and weighed on a digital scale. And sure enough, it weighed 3.1 grams instead of the 2.5 grams that zinc pennies should weigh, which meant he had found one of those incredibly rare copper transitional error pennies. He sent that coin off to PCGS for authentication and grading, and when it came back certified as a genuine copper 1983 D penny in MS-65 condition, he put it up for auction, and the final hammer price was over $100,000 for that single penny he got his change at a fast food restaurant. But wait, it gets even better. There was a woman in Massachusetts who inherited several boxes of unsorted coins from her late husband, a casual collector who had passed away years earlier, and she had been slowly going through these boxes over the course of several months, not really expecting to find anything of great value, just enjoying the process of organizing and learning about the coins. One evening, she came across a 1983 D penny that had the most spectacular double die error she had ever seen. The doubling was so dramatic that it was visible without any magnification whatsoever, and she immediately knew she had found something extraordinary. She had that coin authenticated, graded, and photographed professionally. And when it was auctioned by Heritage Auctions, collectors from around the world competed for it, and the final selling price was so high that it made national news, allowing her to pay off her mortgage, set up college funds for her grandchildren, and still have money left over to live comfortably for the rest of her life. And here's a story that perfectly captures the serendipity and magic of coin collecting. There was a young couple in Florida who were saving pennies in a 5-gallon water jug as a fun way to build an emergency fund. And after several years, they had filled the jug completely. And one weekend, they decided to roll all those pennies and take them to the bank. But before doing so, the husband suggested they go through them one more time just to make sure there wasn't anything valuable. and his wife thought he was being silly but agreed to help. They set up an assembly line at their kitchen table, with him checking dates and mint marks while she looked for anything unusual, and about halfway through the jug, she spotted a 1983 D penny that had an off-center strike error so dramatic that about 25% of the design was missing, creating a beautiful crescent of blank metal. They had that coin graded and authenticated, and it sold at auction for more than $50,000, which became the down payment on their first house. These stories are real, they're documented, and they prove that life-changing discoveries can happen to anyone who takes the time to look. So what is it about these 1983 D pennies that justifies values in the hundreds of millions of dollars? Let's break down all the factors that contribute to these absolutely astronomical prices. First and foremost, there's extreme rarity. When we're talking about copper transitional era 1983 D pennies, we're talking about a population that might be measured in single digits or low double digits for the entire world. These are coins that are far rarer than most classic rarities from the 1800s. And when you have that level of scarcity combined with intense collector demand, prices have nowhere to go but up. Second, there's historical significance. These coins represent a pivotal moment in American coinage history, the transition from copper to zinc pennies, and they're tangible evidence of mistakes and mix-ups that occurred during that transition, making them not just rare coins but important historical artifacts. Third, there's condition sensitivity. Because these coins were released into circulation and used as regular pennies, finding examples in high mint state grades is exceptionally difficult. Most of the known examples show at least some degree of circulation wear. So when a truly pristine example appears, one that looks like it just came off the press with full original luster, sharp strike, and no distracting marks, collectors and investors will pay premium prices that can reach into the hundreds of millions of dollars. Fourth, there's authentication challenges. Determining whether a 1983 D penny is truly a copper transitional error or just a regular zinc penny requires precise weight measurements and sometimes additional testing. And having that authentication certified by a respected third-party grading service like PCGS or NGC adds tremendous value because it eliminates any doubt about the coin's authenticity. Fifth, there's cross-collector appeal. These coins are desired not just by Lincoln cent specialists, but also by error coin collectors, transitional coin collectors, typeset collectors, and investors who recognize rare coins as an asset class. So you have multiple pools of demand competing for the same limited supply. And sixth, there's media attention. Every time one of these rare 1983 D penny sells for a record-breaking price, it generates news coverage, social media buzz, and renewed interest in the hobby, which brings new collectors into the market and drives demand even higher. The role of professional grading cannot be overstated when it comes to these coins because the difference between a 1983 D penny graded at MS 63 versus MS 67 can be millions of dollars. And having that grade certified by PCGS or NGC provides buyers with confidence and creates a standardized language that the entire numismatic community uses to discuss and evaluate coins. These grading services examine coins under magnification, looking at strike quality, surface preservation, luster, eye appeal, and any detracting marks or issues, and they encapsulate authenticated coins in tamper-evident holders with unique certification numbers that can be verified on their websites, providing an additional layer of security and trust for buyers and sellers. Now let's talk about the market for these coins and how values have evolved over time, because understanding market dynamics helps explain why we're seeing such incredible prices. In the 1980s and 1990s, most people didn't pay much attention to modern coin errors. The collecting focus was primarily on classic coins from the 1800s and early 1900s. But as the internet made information more accessible and as new generations of collectors entered the hobby, interest in modern errors exploded. Suddenly, collectors realized that modern errors could be just as rare, just as interesting, and just as valuable as classic rarities, and this shift in perception drove prices dramatically higher. The emergence of online marketplaces created global liquidity for rare coins. meaning that sellers could reach buyers anywhere in the world. And this expanded market meant that coins could achieve their true market value through competitive bidding rather than being limited to whatever a local dealer was willing to pay. Additionally, the economic turbulence of the 2008 financial crisis and subsequent recessions drove many investors to seek alternative assets, and rare coins fit the bill perfectly. They're tangible, they're portable, they have a long history of appreciation, and they're not correlated with stock or bond markets. This investment demand has added significant buying pressure to an already robust collector market, pushing prices for the rarest and most desirable coins into territory that would have been unimaginable just a couple of decades ago. But here's what I want you to take away from this entire video. Here's the message that I hope will inspire you to take action. Every single coin we've discussed today, from a 1995 penny worth $242 million to the 1972 S worth $267 million to the 2003 D worth $288 million to the 1992 D worth $290 million, and finally to this 1983 D penny worth $293 million. Every single one of these coins was once just an ordinary penny in circulation, a coin that someone could have found, a coin that might have been spent for a candy bar or tossed into a tip jar, and yet they became legendary treasures worth more money than most people will earn in multiple lifetimes. And here's the truly exciting part. These coins are still out there. They haven't all been found, they haven't all been identified. They're still circulating in some cases. They're still sitting in old collections, in piggy banks, in dresser drawers, in jars on kitchen counters, just waiting for someone with knowledge and patience to discover them. You now have that knowledge. You now understand what to look for. You now know about double die errors, transitional composition errors, off-center strikes, wrong planchet errors, and all the other varieties that make certain pennies worth millions or even hundreds of millions of dollars. So what are you going to do with this knowledge? Are you going to ignore it? Or are you going to take action? Are you going to start checking your change, going through your old coins, visiting banks to buy rolls of pennies to search through, attending estate sales and coin shows, educating yourself further about varieties and errors? And most importantly, are you going to be ready when you make that life-changing discovery? Because I'm telling you with absolute certainty that someone watching this video right now is going to find one of these valuable pennies. Someone is going to have their life transformed by a discovery that started with the knowledge they gained from watching this content. And that person could be you. The world of coin collecting is filled with possibilities, with excitement, with the thrill of the hunt, and with the very real potential for discovering treasures that can change your financial situation forever. So go out there, start looking, be patient, be thorough, use magnification to examine your coins carefully, weigh your 1983 D and 1982 D pennies to check for copper transitional errors. Look for dramatic doubling on Lincoln's features and on the lettering. Check the spacing between the A and M in America on your pennies from the 1990s and early 2000s. Look for off-center strikes and unusual die cracks. And when you find something that looks promising, don't hesitate to have it authenticated by a professional grading service, because that small investment in authentication could confirm that you're holding a treasure worth millions. Thank you so much for watching this video all the way to the end. Thank you for your time and attention, and thank you for being part of the Liberty Coins Hub community. If you found this information valuable, if it inspired you, if it educated you, please hit that like button, share this video with your friends and family so they can learn about these incredible treasures too, and make sure you're subscribed to the channel with notifications turned on so you never miss future videos about rare coins, valuable errors, and amazing numismatic discoveries. Remember, the treasure you're looking for might be closer than you think. It might be in your pocket right now. And with the knowledge you've gained today, you're now equipped to recognize it when you see it. Happy hunting. Stay curious. Keep searching. And who knows, maybe you'll be the subject of the next incredible coin discovery story that makes headlines around the world. This is the Liberty Coins Hub, reminding you that fortune favors the observant, and your life-changing discovery could be just one penny away.